Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a bit of a different approach. We're looking at something that sounds really simple on the surface.
Right, just someone's daily routine, Sarah's day, hour by hour.
Exactly, a schedule. But we're framing it as, well, kind of a rich source of insight into modern life, how we manage time, and maybe most importantly, the very precise language we actually use to describe, 16 hours of being awake?
Yeah, and the source material itself, it was originally put together to showcase common English phrases, like a learning tool.
Ah, okay.
But we're using it differently. We're looking at it as a blueprint for understanding routine, the choices people make within that routine, like comfort over formality, maybe. And just the amazing specificity of the words needed to track every single action. It's quite something when you break it down.
Okay, so let's unpack that mission a little. We've got this timeline, 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m., but we want to get past just the list of events.
Yeah.
We're digging into the nuance. Like, why use around sometimes and not others? What does choosing comfortable clothes tell us? What are the sort of fundamental lessons hidden in these everyday verbs?
It's all about these linguistic choices. That's the real deep dive here. Tracking how often she says around versus a specific time, like 8:00 a.m. sharp.
Yeah.
It tells you something about her cognitive load, maybe, where she allows herself flexibility versus where, external demands just take over. It's like language mapping onto time.
That sounds fascinating.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's walk through Sarah's day, start to finish, beginning with the structured morning. So Sarah kicks off her day saying, I usually get up at around 6 in the morning.
Right there, in those first few words, she's already introduced two ideas that aren't about strict rigidity, are they?
Not at all. First, usually. That tells us it's a habit, it's the default, reliable.
Okay.
But the really crucial word for how people actually talk about time is around. It immediately signals, an approximation.
Like, not exactly 6.00000. Exactly. The source analysis mentions this. It gives you a little buffer, maybe 5 minutes either side. It's like this built-in linguistic grace period. It lets the day start without that immediate sharp pressure.
Right. It feels like the early morning is still her time. There's that flexibility. Unlike, say, having to clock in precisely at 8 a.m. But okay, once she's decided to start the day, the very first physical act is, well, it's pretty universal. The first thing I do is turn off my alarm.
That's the moment of action, isn't it? Agency. Turn off making something stop. A light, a device, the noise. It's simple, definitive. But then right after that decisive stop, she does something more internal, transitional. She stretches in bed for a few minutes.
Why is that detail, the stretching, important? It feels like more than just, waking up the muscles.
Oh, I think it speaks volumes. It shows what she values in those first few moments. The source defines stretch as extending the body, and it notes she says it feels good. So this isn't about frantic motion, jumping out of bed immediately. It's a pause. A gentle transition, physically and mentally. She's choosing comfort, choosing preparation before the day's demands really kick in. If she'd said, I jump out of bed, the feeling would be totally different, much more urgent. The stretch is like a deliberate buffer zone.
That makes sense. And that distinction gets even clearer with the next step. After that, I get out of bed. You pointed out in the source notes this difference between get up and get out of bed. What's the significance there?
It's subtle, but it separates the mental decision from the physical action. Get up is like the internal switch, the choice to end sleep.
Okay.
Get out of bed is the actual physical movement, leaving the mattress. Using both shows, she recognizes these distinct stages. Even in something so basic, it stops it being just a blur of morning activity.
Right, prevents the merge.
Oh,
Okay, so she's out of bed. Next stop, personal care. Go to the bathroom to have a shower. And you mentioned there's a variation here people use, have a shower or take a shower.
Yeah, the source points this out mainly just to teach common phrasing. They're interchangeable, both perfectly fine in everyday English.
Got it.
But what's maybe more interesting linguistically is the verb have. It's so versatile. She'll have a shower now, and later she'll have breakfast, have lunch. It covers doing something, experiencing something, consuming something. It's a real workhorse verb.
Okay, and the sequence flows naturally. After the shower, dry myself, presumably with a towel, and then get dressed, putting on clothes. But here's that value choice again, comfort.
Yes. This is a really interesting reflection of maybe modern work culture or just personal preference. She specifically says she chooses comfortable clothes for the day.
An active choice.
Absolutely. Choose means to select, to pick. And comfortable, not tight, feels good. Choosing comfort over, say, formal business attire, especially if she works in an environment where that's acceptable, is a way of managing potential stress before it even starts. It's like saying, my physical ease is part of how I prepare. It signals a priority.
Yeah, that resonates. Okay, so dress comfortably. Then she changes location. Then I go downstairs to the kitchen. And now we hit breakfast. But it's not just eating, is it? There's multitasking involved.
Right. First, she makes breakfast. The source doesn't specify what exactly, just the process. But then the specifics, a bowl of oatmeal with fruit and a cup of tea, seems planned, quite healthy. But the key part is the while. While I eat breakfast, I often read the news on my phone.
Ah, the classic time stacking, eating and consuming information simultaneously.
Exactly. While connects those two actions happening at the same time. And notice the preposition, on my phone, just like on the internet, on the computer. It's that precise language mapping onto modern habits again. She's optimizing that breakfast time, not just relaxing, but actively consuming both food and news.
Okay. And before she can actually leave the house, there's the cleanup. I wash the dishes and tidy up the kitchen. The source differentiated these.
It did, and it's a useful distinction. They represent different kinds of tasks. Wash the dishes is specific. Plates, cups, cutlery, you clean the object.
Right.
Tidy up is broader, more about spatial organization. Making a place neat, you tidy up a room, a desk, maybe put things away in the kitchen. They need different verbs because they are different mental jobs in home maintenance.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the very last steps before heading out, I brush my teeth, basic hygiene, and put on a little makeup, applying cosmetics. So by 7:30 a.m., she's done quite a lot, all described with very specific language. The structured part of the morning is done.
The very measured, intentional sequence.
Okay, now things seem to speed up, and maybe that flexibility starts to shrink. Departure time. Around 7:30 a.m., I leave the house to go to work. There's that again, one last little buffer before the clock really starts ticking.
It feels like the final moment where her personal timing has sway. Leave the house, that's the definite exit. But then the mode of transport introduces the external constraint. I usually take the bus.
And here's that fantastic linguistic quirk we talked about. She takes the bus,
Meaning she utilizes that mode of transport.
which takes about 30 minutes.
And there's the second, meaning duration, the time required. It's incredibly efficient, isn't it? One verb, take, covering both the action and the time cost. And that time cost, that 30 minutes, is what dictates everything else.
Because it leads directly to the end of approximation.
Yeah.
She says, I arrive at work at 8 a.m. and start working immediately. Boom. No more around.
That's the sharp edge. Arrive at, reach the destination, fixed time, 8:00 a.m., but immediately. That's the most forceful time word we've seen yet.
Right.
It means right away, no delay. It signals that her personal time, her buffer zones, they end the second she walks through that office door or sits down at her work computer. No easing in, no stretching in the chair this time. It's instant engagement.
The work clock takes over. Okay, so during this work block, what does she do? I usually work on my computer and attend meetings. Pretty standard office stuff.
Seems like it. Work on my computer implies using it for specific job tasks, not casual browsing like at breakfast. And attend meetings, go and participate. These sound like the core requirements of her role.
And she gives us a sense of the duration with a great phrase, throughout the morning. What does throughout really convey here?
It implies continuity, sustained effort, all during the morning, from beginning to end. It suggests she's pretty focused, not just dipping in and out of tasks. It paints a picture of consistent work right up until lunchtime.
Which brings back approximation. Around 12:00, I have lunch with my colleagues in the cafeteria. Why do you think around reappears for lunch?
Well, lunch, even at work, it brings back a social element, a personal break element. 12:00 is the target, sure, but the exact minute you step away might shift slightly based on finishing a call, wrapping up a task.
Okay, a little human flexibility creeps back in.
Exactly. And she's having it with colleagues, coworkers in the cafeteria, the designated shared space. It's structured, but maybe slightly looser.
And the purpose of this break is very clear. We usually chat and relax during our lunch break. It's defined as a break from work.
Absolutely. Chat-friendly, informal talk, not work strategy. And relax, rest, feel calm. The language emphasizes mental restoration. It's not for catching up on emails. It's a recognized part of the workday structure necessary for being productive in the afternoon.
Okay, so post-lunch, it's back to the grind. She goes back to work and continues my tasks until 5:00. Straightforward return, sustained effort again with those tasks, the duties that need doing, until the definite endpoint, finish work.
And then the journey home. The default is predictable. Go back home by bus. Same method as the morning.
Here's a choice, an adaptation based on external factors.
Mhm.
Sometimes if the weather is nice, I walk home.
I love this detail. It shows flexibility built into the end of the workday structure. If the weather is nice, that's the trigger. Sunny, pleasant, and walk home on foot. The fact that she can make this swap, trading a 30-minute bus ride for maybe a longer walk, tells us her evening schedule isn't packed to the brim right at 5:30. There's enough slack, enough personal control to allow for a spontaneous choice based on pleasure or well-being. The work block is rigid, but the transition home can be fluid.
Okay, so she makes it home, whether by bus or foot, get home, arrive at the house, and the first thing she notes is how she feels. I usually feel tired, sleepy, lacking energy. That feeling seems to drive the very next action.
It does. It's immediate self-management. Before jumping into chores or cooking, she needs to address that fatigue. The solution: relax on the sofa for a while.
That phrase, for a while, what does that signify?
It's deliberately vague, isn't it? A short, undefined period. It's not scheduled like a meeting. It's responsive to her internal state. It's a conscious pause, a decompression to avoid just crashing or feeling overwhelmed by the shift from work to home life. It acknowledges that post-work dip.
Makes sense. And this period, after getting home, say between 5:30 and maybe 7:400, seems defined by options, by choices, which is quite different from the morning's fixed sequence. She lays out two possibilities.
Yeah, the first involves social connection. Sometimes my friend comes over and we talk or watch a movie. The phrase "comes over" is key. It means the friend visits her place. So this requires social energy, interaction,
And the alternative
is self-sufficiency. Other times, I cook dinner for myself. Why add for myself? What does that tell us?
well, it emphasizes it's just her, right? Not cooking for a family, not necessarily even for the friend if they didn't come over. It's about managing her own needs.
Exactly. It highlights her autonomy in her personal time. The evening can pivot based on whether she's hosting or just taking care of herself. The routine is flexible enough to accommodate both scenarios.
Okay. Dinner itself happens around 7:30 p.m. There's a round, again, marking personal time.
It fits the pattern perfectly. Approximation for personal meals, social time, waking up, leaving the house, rigidity for work arrival and departure. It's a consistent linguistic choice.
And then, reality bites. After dinner, I usually wash the dishes again. The cycle of chores continues.
It's unavoidable, isn't it? Daily maintenance. But once that's done, once the home space is reset, we get to the core of the evening's flexibility. Her options are described using might. I might read a book or watch some TV.
That word might feels really significant here. It's pure possibility.
It absolutely is. The source analysis flags this. Might means maybe. It signals possibility without commitment. She hasn't pre-decided. She has options, freedom.
It's the complete opposite of start working immediately.
Precisely. The whole day can almost be seen as this tension between immediately and might. Might represents the reward, the cognitive rest, the personal freedom earned after a day of structure and demands. Her evening isn't dictated by obligation anymore, but by preference.
It's linguistic freedom marking her personal time. Okay, but the day isn't quite over. There are final preparations, and these seem non-negotiable again.
Yes, back to certainty. Hygiene. I always brush my teeth again. That always is as strong as usually or immediately in its own way. And then the general preparation. Get ready for bed.
Which covers what? Putting on pajamas? Maybe setting out clothes for tomorrow?
Could be anything like that. It's the whole wind-down process, a final routine checklist before sleep, providing that sense of closure on the day.
And the very end, bedtime itself. I usually go to bed around 10 or 10:30 p.m. Again, a slight range, that final bit of flexibility.
That half-hour window. And her concluding thought sums it all up. That's pretty much my daily routine. Pretty much meaning mostly, almost. It's the final nod to reality, acknowledging that life happens, things might shift slightly, but this is the basic, reliable structure. 16 hours, mapped out with fascinating linguistic precision.
So, we followed the day chronologically, but now let's pull back, like you said, and really focus on the language itself. We've encountered so many specific verbs, adverbs, phrases. That seems to be the real treasure trove in this source material.
Exactly. It's not just a vocabulary list. Looking at the patterns tells us something about the architecture of her day, maybe even her life. We can kind of group these words thematically. Let's start with verbs about self-management, those internal actions.
Okay, like in the morning, stretch, extending the body, or choose for the clothes, and later, relax on the sofa. These aren't things someone told her to do.
Right, they're verbs of intentional self-care, conscious internal decisions. When you use words like choose or relax to describe your routine, you're assigning value. Sarah seems to actively prioritize comfort, decompression. These verbs mark her personal boundaries. Imagine if she said, I prepare for the evening, instead of I relax. Totally different feeling.
Yeah, shifts the meaning entirely. Okay, what about the chore words? The source seemed quite specific about those.
It was. We had wash the dishes, cleaning specific objects,
Yeah.
and tidy up that broader spatial organization. Both are necessary but different cognitive tasks. And brush my teeth, that recurring hygiene task. These are the maintenance verbs, keeping the system functional. Different verbs for different mental checklists.
Right. Now, something we touched on but is worth revisiting. How English reuses verbs. That efficiency, have and take, really stood out.
Oh, definitely. Have, it's used for bathing, have a shower, and then for all meals, have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner. Same verb, completely different contexts, experience versus consumption. It's like a universal placeholder.
And take. The commute example was perfect.
Brilliant, wasn't it? Take the bus, the method, the action of using transport. And the journey takes about 30 minutes, the duration, the time cost. One word doing double duty, defining action and consequence simultaneously. Super efficient.
Okay, how about verbs of movement? Getting from A to B.
We saw a clear progression. Go downstairs, moving within her home, leave the house, the definite exit point, arrive at work, reaching the destination. Simple essential location tracking. And then that social movement verb comes over specifically for a visitor entering her space. The whole day is a map traced by these displacement verbs.
Let's get into the adverbs and modifiers now. Because that's where the real nuance lives, isn't it? Especially that tension between approximation and precision.
That's the core theme, I think. The constant push and pull between around and immediately. Around signals flexibility, personal control. It frames her wake up, her departure, lunch, dinner. Those are her buffer zones.
But immediately slams the door on flexibility. Start working immediately. No wiggle room. It reflects the external pressure of the job.
And looking at the ratio of around to immediately across her whole day gives you this insight into her personal structure. She's disciplined when necessary, but builds in generous allowance elsewhere. It seems quite balanced, actually.
We also had throughout. Throughout the morning, working. What does that add?
It emphasizes sustained effort, continuity, not just working sporadically, but continuously for that whole block of time. It's a great word for conveying focus.
And while for the multitasking.
Right, while signifies simultaneity. Reading while eating. It's the language of time stacking, doing two things at once.
And finally, let's talk about those modals. The shift from usually to might.
Huge shift. Usually sets the template for most of the day, reliable, predictable, morning, work tasks, the basic flow. But then the evening hits, chores are done, fatigue managed, and suddenly it's might. I might read. I might watch TV. That might is the linguistic flag for possibility, choice, cognitive rest, freedom. It signals that her evening is driven by preference, not obligation.
It's like the linguistic pressure release valve.
Yeah.
Wow. So this routine, which started as just, a source for English phrases,
Yeah.
it's actually turned out to be this incredibly detailed psychological map, showing how one person navigates time, work, choice, self-care, all through very precise everyday language. Hashtag outro.
Yeah, I think what Sarah's routine really shows us is that a well-structured day isn't necessarily about cramming in as much as possible. It's more about balancing those fixed external demands with these really clear, intentional moments of flexibility, rest, and connection.
And every single choice, every tiny action, from stretching in bed to deciding whether to walk home, it's all captured and defined by these specific linguistic tools. These verbs and adverbs aren't just labels. They shape how we perceive and manage our time.
When you slow down and really think about the words you use for your own day, I have to do this versus I get to do this, or I finished work at 5 versus I finished around 5, it's revealing.
It makes you realize how much thought, even unconsciously, goes into picking the right word.
Yeah.
Sarah didn't just say clean up. She specified wash the dishes again, because that was the task. Understanding that link between the action and the specific language is maybe the biggest takeaway here.
We've cracked her whole day, haven't we?
Yeah.
From the around 6 a.m. start right through to the might read a book possibility and the around 10:30 p.m. finish.
So that brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to consider. You have a routine, too. Everyone does, even if it feels chaotic. We challenge you to try analyzing it, not just listing what you do, but thinking about the exact words, the verbs, the adverbs you would use to describe your own day with Sarah's level of precision.
And maybe pay special attention to that ratio we talked about. How much of your day falls under, around, or sometimes, or might? And how much is governed by immediately, or always, or have to?
What activities get the sharp, defined language, and which ones get the softer, more flexible terms?
And what could that balance, or maybe imbalance, reveal about your own values, your internal structure, and the boundaries you draw between life's necessities and the freedoms you carve out for yourself?
That's the real deep dive into your own schedule. Thank you for joining us today.
We'll catch you next time.